Detectives uncover the truth after seeing what was hidden in his garage. A man was found dead after being reported missing for 3 days. The police were called to a house in a small town in America after a concerned neighbor contacted them. The neighbor stated that he hadn't seen his friend for several days, and when he went to check on him, he found his garage door was wide open. As the garage door was almost always kept closed, this immediately raised the neighbor's suspicions. When the police arrived, they too were unable to find the man inside of the house, so they decided to search the property. But it was then they noticed something that really stood out to them. You see, there was a part of the garden that had been dug up recently. It looked like a fresh grave. The officers approached it slowly. Then one of them took off his glove and stuck his finger into the soft earth. He confirmed their suspicions. This was definitely a grave. And so the police began to dig it up. But what they found next shocked them all. The detectives were able to identify the body thanks to the belongings that were found with the man. They found his wallet, his keys, and also the clothes he had been wearing before he went missing. The man had been reported missing by his wife, who claimed that she hadn't seen him for days. She said that she had tried calling him, but his phone had gone straight to voicemail. When the police told her they had found his body, she broke down in tears. She insisted that she had no idea that he had been killed, but the police knew that something didn't add up. As they searched the rest of the property, they found blood in the garage. It looked like the man had been shot there, but why? And more importantly, who was responsible for his death? The police searched the rest of the house, but they didn't find any signs of a struggle. There were no bullet holes in the walls or doors, and nothing had been stolen from the house. So why had someone wanted to kill the man in the first place? As the investigation progressed, the detectives learned more about the man who had been killed. His name was Joseph, and he was a family man. He worked as an accountant and had 2 children with his wife. All of his neighbors described him as a kind and friendly man. So why would anyone want to hurt him? The police were baffled. They had no suspects and no motive for the murder. Then one of the detectives remembered that Joseph owned a classic car. It was an old Ford Mustang that he had restored a few years ago. He had entered it into a competition and won first prize. He was incredibly proud of himself and often showed off the trophy he had received. The detective decided to take a look in the garage to see if the car was still there. But what he saw made his blood run cold. The garage was completely empty. There was no sign of the car or any of Joseph's tools. It was as if the entire garage had been cleared out, but then he noticed something strange. There were several oil stains on the floor, and they didn't seem to have been there before. The detective took a closer look and realized that they were tire tracks. They looked like they had been made by a truck. But how could a truck have gotten into the garage? The garage door was blocked by Joseph's car. As he continued to investigate, he found a small hole in the corner of the garage. It was covered by a shelf, but the detective was able to brush it off and see that it was big enough to fit a small person through. He called over another detective, and they looked at each other in disbelief. Someone had dug a tunnel into the garage, but who and why? They decided to bring in Joseph's wife for another interview. She was visibly shaken when she heard about the new development in the case. The detectives told her that they believed that Joseph had been killed in the garage and that someone had then dug a tunnel out to escape. They asked her if she knew anything about this, but she swore that she didn't. She said that she hadn't seen anyone since Joseph had died. But the detectives weren't buying it. They could tell that she was hiding something. As they continued to question her, she eventually broke down and confessed to everything. She told them that she had hired a hitman to kill her husband. But why? According to her, Joseph had been having an affair. She had found out about the woman he was seeing and confronted him, but he had denied it. She couldn't believe that he would lie to her, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. She found a hitman online and paid him $5,000 to kill her husband. She showed the detectives where she had stashed the murder weapon and the clothes that she had been wearing the night of the murder. She had taken great pains to hide the evidence, but it had all been for nothing. She was arrested and charged with murder. As the police were leaving the house, one of the officers noticed something else. There was a small hole in the wall that had been covered with a painting. It was the perfect size for a camera. They removed the painting, and sure enough, there was a hidden camera behind it. Whoever had killed Joseph had done a good job of covering their tracks, but the police were able to piece together what had happened. Joseph had been shot in the garage, and then the killer had used a backhoe to dig a tunnel out. They had then removed the car so that it wouldn't be seen. They had covered up the blood and replaced it with oil. They had put the shelf in front of the hole and hung the painting over it. They had even planted tire tracks in the garage to throw off the police, but it was all for nothing. As soon as the police found out that Joseph's wife had hired a hitman to kill him, it became clear who was responsible for the murder. It was her lover. He had killed Joseph and then tried to cover up the evidence, but the police had seen through his lies. At first, the police had thought that Joseph's wife was the mastermind behind the murder. But as the investigation progressed, it became clear that it was her lover who was responsible. He had killed Joseph and then tried to cover up the evidence, but the police were able to see through his lies. In the end, both the husband and wife were arrested. She was charged with murder, and he was charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Both were sentenced to life in prison without parole. One thing that surprised many people was the fact that Joseph's wife was able to hire a hitman without anyone noticing. She had taken great pains to hide her tracks, but it was all for nothing. In the end, she was caught and brought to justice. The story is a reminder that no matter how careful you are, the truth will always come out. No matter how hard you try to cover up your tracks, the police will always be able to see through your lies. It's also a reminder to be careful of the people we trust. We never know when someone might turn on us. In this case, it was the wife who betrayed her husband. She had sworn to love him forever, but she was willing to do anything to protect her affair. The most surprising part of the story is that the couple had been married for many years. They had 2 children together and seemed to have a happy life. But behind closed doors, things were very different. The wife was unhappy in her marriage and willing to do anything to protect her affair. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching. See you next time.